Hello and welcome to the second SciNews members interview with Mars. First up is the intro. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Fabien, I'm 42. I live in Bordeaux, France with my daughter. I work as a computer science engineer and I was one of the first members of SciNews. I helped children develop the website for more than 3.5 years. Nowadays I take care of it a little bit from time to time, but I am much more involved into Century Records that we founded with another early member of SciNews, Anubis, and also the Apsara Festival. I am extremely happy to be here today because it means the community is still alive, Goatrans is still alive, and it means a lot to me.
Hello Fabien, it's a pleasure to have you here. First question, how did you get in touch with Psytrance and what made you stick around?
I started listening to electronic music in the very early 90s, and between 92 and 95 I was a lot into trance, hardcore, hard trance, and then on a weekend I remember we were with our parents, we were just kids. There was my good friend Paco who handed me the Trance Central 4 CD mixed by Prana, and at first I didn't like it that much. But then a few months later I got my hands on the first Hallucinogen album and then it was a blast. It changed my life actually, and that's how I stuck into this. It was so great, I never wanted to change, and I'm still into it 20 years later, 25 years later.
How were things in the Psytrance or Goatrance scene before the internet age, if you recall? Where did you get the infos, what parties to attend, etc.? How was it organized and how were news or party dates communicated?
I started connecting to the internet in 94, I guess, and I would say there were a couple of phases. At first there was absolutely nothing about Goatrans on the internet except maybe the Coda magazine, on a French techno related magazine. Then we were just going to techno shops and fetching flyers where there was usually an address to a meeting point. Then we would go to the meeting point and then get the actual party address. That was obviously a scheme to deter the cops. I don't know if it really worked. And well, we would just drive there. We were able to drive as far as 200 or 300 kilometers just to get to one party, because there were 4 parties a year in my area in the southwest of France back then. Obviously we were bound to stay in the area before we had the driving license, but after we got it we were really able to drive 3 or 4 hours just to go to one party in Poitiers or in Toulouse. Then there was a change, I would say, in the very late 90s, very late 90s. There were the first forums, BBS if you want to call them like that. There were directions to parties. Parties were announced there. There was a Transgoa forum in France, and there was also a famous forum in Belgium, I remember. So that's where we would get the tricks and the direct directions to go to the parties. That was an interesting time, and that's around the time SciNews was born. And then everything changed with Facebook in 2007. From there on, all those forums started to decay, and Facebook was the ideal place to announce parties.
How did you come across the idea to found an online community for Psytrance? What convinced you that it was a good idea?
Well, just to make things clear, it was children who had the idea to found this community, and back then there was a British website called Third Eye, which shut down at the end of 1999, I think. And children was fond of it because he could find some useful information about Goatrans and CD reviews there. He was disappointed to see it go, so he basically recreated the same site. And then I joined like 2 months later.
Why did you name it SciNews, and why did you choose the .org domain?
Yeah, for a while it was hosted on personal pages of children account. I think from his internet provider. It was called goatrans.free.fr. And then after a few months, because we were getting quite a lot of traction, we thought, yeah, let's buy a domain name. It's getting cheaper. I think there was a short discussion about this. I don't remember it being a very hard process to find the name SciNews. SciNews.com was taken, I remember, but it was not even our intent to get it because we didn't want to make it a company. We wanted to make it something like more like a community, what it was actually. So we had the choices to have .org or .net. I think both were available, and we just chose .org because it highlighted the fact that we were not interested in money.
What were your experiences with the internet before? Did you have the knowledge required to make the site? Where did you get that knowledge from?
Well, like I said before, I started connecting to the internet in 1994, I guess, from cyber cafes, and then from my parents' house in 1998, I guess. I knew programming, but nothing about the internet, really, per se. However, I got into a computer science engineering school in Paris in 1998, and then I learned a lot there, but not really about the web. So when I proposed children to help him with the site, actually we had no idea what we were doing. So we were discovering things and investigating and just using common sense. But it was a lot of work because back then we had nothing was automated, so I think children was updating pages on a daily basis manually. Anyway, after that's SciNews helped us build our career.
So tell us about the site's creation process. It was not a full bulletin board from the start, or was it? How did it grow into that? I remember myself that you had several sections, one also devoted to Citroën stores around the world, for example.
At the beginning, it was just a site whose primary purpose was to give people reviews about albums. So there were a few people who were really deeply involved with Goatrans, and they were submitting reviews, albums that they would buy on different shops. They would submit the reviews by email to children, I think, and there it would update or create pages manually every day. It was crazy when you think about it. And there were several sections like shops. I have it here actually on archive.org. Who we are, what is Goa, Goa reviews, yeah, obviously. Yeah, there were favorites, what we like the most and what people like the most. Artist infos are, right, some interviews, some links to other websites, parties. I don't think we really used it. And shops. And after a while there was the forum started. Quite fast. So yeah, once again we were all deeply involved in Psytrance, going to parties, etc., and we were harvesting all sorts of information about the scene and submitting it to children most of the time, and he would update the site daily. It was foolish.
Who were your first visitors of the site and members on the bulletin board community? Friends or strangers?
That's a good question. So I remember when I joined, there were just a few people submitting daily, like Anubis, who I am still working with on Suntrip. Guys like, I don't know their real names actually, Mindbender, Gav, I think this guy died. Infected Max, he was a huge fan of Infected Mushroom and he was designing their website too. Statis, Tequila and Ubik were two friends that I saw one of them very recently actually. Death Posture from Denmark is still going on the site, I think, regularly. Baboon, Pitufo from Mexico, Dreamer from Israel, Benoit, a friend of mine, the ultimate astral projection fan, Chaitu from India maybe, Psytrancer, he was from, I don't remember. And of course Yanis, who is now known as Filteria. He was 17 back then. So, and how did they get awareness? I think it's thanks to Google. They were people looking for information, were searching on Google, and then they would find us easily because we had put a lot of tags in our web pages, so the Google would index it easily, and their searches would be matched to News, I guess. And then it was, like I said, a very manual process where people would write to children via email and then maybe through the forum when the forum was up.
Thank you for doing this interview with us. This was part 1. I hope to be uploading part 2 soon. Hope to see you back then. Thanks and goodbye.